Hello, this is YJ. I am going to take you on a little journey that I'm going on. I have been teaching people to program and I have been revisiting my programming. I've been programming in Python. So today is all about learning to program through challenges. Now, why through challenges? Well, for me, I like to solve problems, and the best way I've found to learn how to program in any particular language is by having a problem to solve. And that is why this is called Learn to Program Through Challenges. Now, programming is a real popular thing right now, and everybody is trying to learn how to program. So how do we do this? For me, it's more about taking certain steps. What do I mean? There are steps to creating a program when you're trying to solve a problem. And those steps are usually the same steps that you repeat no matter how simple or no matter how complex a problem is. For instance, first, when you've got a big problem, the best thing is make the problem simpler. In order to solve it, you've got to make the problem simpler. The second bit is to make a problem simpler, you're going to have to understand what exactly is the problem about. Now, when people rush into coding and they're just trying to code in a particular language, I often ask them, have you actually understood the problem? Have you actually been able to solve it? Do you know what the problem is asking you to do, to find out, or to solve? If you have done, you should have come up with a series of steps on how to actually solve the problem or do the task. And the best way to solve any problem, whether it's a programming problem or a problem in real life, is first of all break a big problem down into smaller problems. And when you've broken it down into smaller problems, start by solving each smaller problem, and hopefully by the time you've solved all the small problems, you should have solved the big problem. And that's exactly the point. Now, one major factor that people really might not have noticed is you need to ignore any distracting details. In any problem, you're going to have details that really, they're there, but they don't help you solve the problem. And you'll understand more as we go along. Write down the steps in the right order. So you've understood how to solve a problem. Now, next step is to write each of the steps to solve the problem in the right order. If you write them in the right order, then no matter who picks up your instructions, they should still be able to solve that problem. If they can't, then have you written down the right solution? The solution has to be written down in such a way that no matter who is following your instructions, they should still come out with the same outcome. Now, once you've written down the steps in the right order, the last step is translate those steps into a particular programming language. So those are the steps I'm going to be using each time I have a challenge and I want to solve it, and solve it by creating a program that can be executed on a computer. Fun, fun, fun. The steps that involve breaking down the problem into smaller problems and then solving each smaller problem, often you'll find that process is called decomposition. Now, whenever I say decomposition, I kind of remind people about the way the body breaks down. It breaks down into its component parts, especially when we are no longer on this earth. Decomposition means to break down, and when in programming, when you decompose a problem, you break it down into smaller bits. Sorry, I've got a cold. The next step is ignoring any distracting details. Now, you ignore the distracting details because they're not going to help you solve the problem. So take your eyes off them and focus on the bits that are going to help you solve a problem. Now, that step is called abstraction. Remove any distracting details and focus on the relevant details to help you solve the problem. After that, you have a process which is called creating the algorithm. That's the step where you're writing down the steps in the right order so that when they're run, they can solve the problem. And that is where you start dealing with algorithms. The final part of my little procedure, and I'm not saying these are the be all and end procedures. These are the procedures that I feel are the right steps to take, and they've often worked for me. But you may have a different set of sequences. So the last part is to actually code it all up. What do I mean by code it all up? You put it in a particular language. Now, my language of favor right now is Python. So that's the language I'll be using. Okay, now a real life example. Steps to getting out of bed. In order to solve how you get out of bed, and mind you, each of us gets out of bed in a different manner. So I'm talking about the way I get out of bed. And if I wanted to make sure that people did it the way I do it every morning, then I would have to solve a problem on how do I actually get out of bed? What do I actually do? I'd break it down into smaller problems. So I might open my eyes. I might stretch my legs, sit up, put on a robe, get up, alarm rings, pull back the blankets, put my feet on the ground. I might do all of those steps. I'm not saying I'll necessarily do them in those order, but all these steps are the smaller problems I have to solve in order to complete the bigger problem of getting out of bed. And that is decomposition. The second part to completing this whole creating a program of me getting out of bed is abstraction. What details do I need to ignore when I'm getting out of bed? Well, first of all, it really doesn't matter what color pajamas I'm wearing or what type, whether they're silk or cotton. That's irrelevant to the actual problem of getting out of bed. So is the actual person in the bed. All we want to know is we need them to get out of bed. We don't need to know whether we have luxurious Egyptian cotton sheets or just a basic wool blanket. It's irrelevant. There's just a covering on the bed. It's not going to help us solve the problem. And it doesn't matter what type of alarm clock that ding-a-ling-a-lings to get you up. It just needs to be an alarm clock. So all these, and perhaps some other details, all need to be ignored. Remove them from the equation of solving the problem because they're not part of it. They're not going to contribute to you solving the problem of how to get out of bed. And the process of removing them is abstraction. Okay, we're on the final leg. So the algorithm. Putting all the different steps into the right order, we need to create an algorithm. So what would be the right order? So as I said, this is the way I get out of bed. You may not necessarily follow this, but if I am giving other people instructions that I would like them to follow so that they will always be able to get out of bed the way I do, then they need to follow it in this sequence. So the first thing that will happen is the alarm will ring. My eyes will pop wide open, or not. I'll stretch my legs and make sure that they're there and they're working. I'll pull back the blankets and think, yep, we're getting there. Put my feet on the ground. Finally, I'll sit up, put on a robe, and then I'll get up. Now, this order, and it's the correct order that I get out of bed, is called an algorithm. And so long as I give people this, anybody I give this sequence should be able to mimic me in getting out of bed. It's in the right order, and if they follow it step by step, they should be able to achieve the same outcome. The final part, yeah, we're hitting the end. The final part is to code it all up. And that means putting it in a specific programming language. The language of favor, as I've told you, is Python for me. But you can also code it in Java, Scratch, C++. There are a whole plethora of languages. Choose whichever one is your poison. So once you've done all that and you've put all those steps into the right programming language, you are finally programming. Yeah. So that would be you now beginning to program. Now it may even just be a very simple program. It may be complex, but once you can go through those steps, you have begun to program. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, tune in for the next edition, which is how we put out information on the screen. Thank you for watching. This is YJ. Come back soon.